Welcome to TV, Tennessee Valley Church. A couple of years ago, I began a sermon with this line. I remember well the night a woman I didn't know kissed me in a bar on Christmas Eve. You see, in Richmond, Virginia, the church I served as pastor had a campus located in a shopping center right next to a bar. Lots of the regulars at the bar liked the fact that a church was next door. Our campus pastor there once even did the funeral for one of those regulars. And one Christmas Eve, some of us decided to go over to that bar and sing Christmas carols. After all, if you're in a bar on Christmas Eve, the chances are you could use some good news. So we went in and asked the owner, and he said sure. So we sang. We sang lots of carols, and people sang along to those beloved songs. Then, as we were leaving, a woman walked up to me and said, "I could just kiss you." And she did, on the cheek. It was an honor. Today we're talking about the prayer Jesus prayed for his followers, often summarized by the phrase, "in the world, not of the world." I think it's fair to say that Christmas Eve, I was not of the world, but I was glad to be in it. That phrase, the world, in the Bible, and as I'm using it here, simply means secular society beyond the circle of Jesus' followers and, well, beyond Jesus' control. It's not completely godless, the world. God is not confined to the walls of a church building, but the world is also not looking to Jesus for direction. So again, the world is secular society beyond the circle of Jesus' followers and beyond Jesus' control. And followers of Jesus, and thus churches, are supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. On the one hand, it seems some followers of Jesus are too much of the world, meaning their values are shaped more by secular society than by Jesus. To use language from 2 Timothy 2, we might say they are entangled in worldly affairs. On the other hand, there are lots of us who are not enough in the world. We're too isolated, too disassociated, too segregated, too separated, too differentiated, too disaffiliated. It's as if some of us don't like the world, or we're afraid of it. We Jesus followers are supposed to be involved in the world, connected to the world, through friendships and service and actually blessing the world out there, making the world a better place, if you will. Today, I assume and I hope I'm talking to people across a wide spiritual spectrum. I want to talk to all of us about the appropriate role of Jesus followers and our churches in society. What does it mean in 2022 for Jesus followers and our churches to be in the world but not of it? Here are a few things. Number one, followers of Jesus must not isolate ourselves in a bubble. The religious leaders attacked Jesus for eating and drinking with what they called crooks and sinners. But by intentionally involving himself in the lives of people beyond his normal circle, Jesus modeled for us what it means to be in the world but not of it. Unfortunately, many Christians are not in the world hardly at all. We live in Christian bubbles. We live in a self-imposed Christian quarantine. We go to Christian schools, listen to Christian music, socialize with Christian friends, and shop with Christian business people. We live in Christian echo chambers, meaning we listen only to opinions that reinforce our own. Living exclusively in Christian bubbles is not being in the world. So if your circle has shrunk to include only Christians, you need a larger circle. If your conversations have shrunk to include only Christians and people who agree with you on everything, you need larger conversations. If your heart has shrunk to loving only Christians, you need a larger heart. Followers of Jesus must not isolate ourselves in a bubble. Number two, in order to be in the world and not of it, we must be able and willing to have hard conversations. And so, beginning Wednesday, March the 23rd, for 4 consecutive Wednesday evenings, I'm going to be talking on the transgender conversation. We'll be in the Life Center at First Baptist Huntsville at 600 Governors Drive. The program each week will begin at 6 p.m. and end at 7. In preparation for that conversation, you can download my booklet on the website under Our Beliefs, the Transgender Conversation. Now, why in the world would I jump into such a controversial topic as this? Well, because while Jesus followers and our churches are not supposed to be wrapped up in the world, we are supposed to be involved in the world. The church should be part of our culture's big conversations, and this is a big conversation. In 2014, a Time magazine cover story declared our Western culture had reached a tipping point in the transgender conversation. And in 2015, CNN said we have reached a transgender moment. The notion of someone living as a sex different from his or her biological or birth sex was now widely acknowledged and affirmed. Merriam-Webster's 2019 word of the year was they, referring to the pronoun often preferred by those who identify as transgender. The number of children and adults coming out as transgender and the frequency of transgender identifying persons in the news are surging. A New York Times article on January 14 spoke of an upsurge. The trend is unmistakable and undeniable. As for me, this is about both speaking truth as I understand it and loving people where they are. On the one hand, some people speak what they believe to be truth, but they speak in such harsh and legalistic tones that the only people listening are their supporters. Some Christians mock trans people or dismiss them or bully them, often in the name of taking a stand. I recently heard a prominent Baptist pastor speak of Rachel Levine, the transgender Assistant Secretary for Health and Human Services in D.C. In his nationally broadcast sermon, this pastor spoke mockingly of Levine. His derisive ridicule of Admiral Levine got a round of applause from his congregation. Now, I understand the importance of being plain-spoken and of speaking our convictions. But I wonder, how many people are going to look to that pastor or to that congregation for answers about their genuine questions and confusions? My guess is not many. So on the one hand, some speak harshly of and to LGBTQ persons. On the other hand, some people are kind and loving, but they don't recognize God-given sexual values and boundaries. I believe that, too, is unhealthy, both for individuals and for our society. To self-righteously exclude, dismiss, or hate people is wrong. It is also wrong to say anything goes. The integration of truth and grace is hard. And yet it is into that hard, risky, messy integration of truth and grace that I feel called. I hope you do too. That's part of what it means, I believe, to be in the world, but not of the world. In order to be in the world, not of it, we must be able and willing to have hard conversations. Number 3, in order to be in the world and not of the world, Jesus followers must bless our world by serving it. There was a time when people in the broader society wanted to know what pastors and church leaders thought and said. Not so much anymore. The church no longer occupies a place of prominence in culture. Christians no longer shape our society from a position of authority. Our place now is to influence our society from a position of service. Now we have to earn a voice. Now we have to earn respect. Now we have to earn a place in the world. And that's not such a bad thing. Churches have done best in history when they were serving people instead of controlling people. So, if Jesus followers will bless our cities and towns and the region of North Alabama by serving them, by blessing them, then perhaps people will give us a voice in the shaping of the world beyond our bubbles. That's part of what it means to be in the world. In a few minutes, I'm going to be back to talk more about what it means for followers of Jesus and our churches to be in the world, but not of the world.
I know you've played with professional orchestras. I know you've played all around the world. Is there a highlight or two that just, if you were asked on the street, I remember this as one of the highlights of my life. Is there something that pops into your mind?
When I came to ministry 25 years ago, I came still with my human identity. You see, it's two kinds of identities. One identity is in the world, and another identity is in God, is in Jesus. I came to ministry with my identity in the world. And I was telling God, God, send me to the largest churches. I am a decent guitar player, so I'm going to do a good job for you. Just send me to the biggest churches. And in fact, you know, I play in a very large churches, 30,000 people churches. But in the beginning of my ministry, the Lord sent me in the middle of nothing in Florida to a very 25 people church. The youngest man in the church was 78-year-old. And I remember, Bill, I was practicing my guitar. No air conditioning, very hot and humid. And I was practicing my guitar. And I was telling myself what I'm doing here. I'm playing for 25 people? That's not what I want. I want to be playing in big places. And I was practicing with a very terrible attitude, not a humble attitude. And my beautiful wife saw my attitude, and she told me, you know what? You're right. You're a big shot for this. Let's pack the guitar and let's go. And just let's get out of ministry, because God don't need people with an attitude. God will want people with submitted heart, with a humbleness. In that day, Bill, I feel so convicted by the Spirit of God that I said, from my heart, I said, Lord, please forgive me. I have a new heart. I have a new day. I have a new song. Please forgive my attitude. And I have to tell you, that day is one of the best performances that I did in my whole entire career as a guitar player. Because I played with such a passion and dedication to knowing who I was playing. I was not playing for 25 old people. I was worshiping with 25 old people to the King of Kings. And that changed my performance, and that changed my sense and the way how I play. And that was big for me. That was more big than playing at Carnegie Hall. And that day I understood the real meaning of ministry.
What's next in this next chapter of your career?
Well, I'm ready for anything. You know, I don't have any plans. Some plans to go to Europe the next year. And in time, when I am at home, I go to, with one of my friends, I go to hospitals, and I go to private homes, people that are sick, and I grab my guitar, and I play a little hymn, Amazing Grace, How Great Thou Art. And the power of the music that God created is amazing. So my friend, my pastor friend, he prayed, and I play the guitar. So when I am in town, we do that. And sometimes I go to prisons, maximum security prisons, and I do the same.
Thank you so much for your free sharing of who you are as a person, for the way that you freely share your talents and your heart for ministry. It's an incredible combination of who you are, that God put you together in a very special way.
Thank you so much.
And we will look forward to you coming back to Huntsville to be with us at some point in the future. Your answer is the best answer about what's ahead. You're waiting to know what God wants you to do next. That's the best answer.
It was the night before his death Within an hour or two, he would be betrayed by Judas and arrested by armed soldiers acting on behalf of religious leaders. Jesus turned his eyes toward heaven and he began to pray. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. They are not of the world, even as I am not of it. Sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world.
I saw a story written by a man named William, who wrote that one day he and his buddies were playing golf. They noticed that playing behind them on the golf course were two older golfers. The two older golfers would catch up to William's foursome. Then they would fall far behind. They'd catch up to William's group and then they'd fall back again. When the senior golfers got close enough, William struck up a conversation with them and tried to find out why they were getting close and then falling back again and then catching up again. One of the older gentlemen explained, "We don't get in a hurry anymore. You see, Joel here is 91 and I'm 89 and we have so many aches and pains that, well, we only play the easy holes." When those two guys came to a tough hole, they just drove their golf cart around it until they came to a hole that suited them better. It's tempting for followers of Jesus to do that, to play only the easy holes in life, to avoid the tough things and do only the comfortable things. It's tempting to only talk about positive topics, at church, to sing and read the Bible and have our church suppers. All good things, by the way, but easy things. It would be comfortable to do only the easy things, but that's not being church as Jesus intended His church to be. Jesus didn't avoid the hard holes of life, and He doesn't expect us to. Let's join Jesus in the world, outside our bubbles, making a difference, even on the so-called hard holes. I love the speech President Theodore Roosevelt gave in Paris in 1910. President Roosevelt declared, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly." As followers of Jesus, we must be in the arena, playing even the hard holes, if you will, having the hard conversations, serving in hard places, doing the difficult work of balancing grace and truth, loving even when love is not returned. And if we fail, at least we will fail while daring greatly. I'm quite sure Jesus would want it that way.
This is Laurel Matthews from Huntsville, and she's a junior at Mississippi State here for her spring break vacation. Thanks for sitting down with us today.
Absolutely.
Laurel, Travis is preaching about being not of the world, but being in the world. How do you do that as a junior on a college campus?
I think the big thing is like having your close-knit group of friends and like that solid community being of believers to like spur one another on towards Christ and encourage each other in faith, but then also like not shying away from going out and sharing your faith with others, or like shying away from having those hard conversations with other people.
Through your mission work at Mississippi State, you've had a chance to do that. Tell me about that.
So I'm actually on the evangelism team at Mississippi State. And so like once a week we'll get to go out and share with a partner from the BSU, and so we'll go and we'll pray for different people on campus, and like if they have any particular prayer requests, we'll get to pray for them over that, and then from that, if they're open to having a gospel conversation, like we get to share the gospel with them and then just continue to pray for them over that. And so it's been really neat to see. It is very surprising how many people are open to hearing the gospel even if they aren't Christian. Usually we'll start again by praying, and so most people are open to that. And then just from there, like even if they don't accept Christ right then and there on the spot, like that seed has been planted, and so it's really neat. So we actually have a really, really large community of international students, and so one thing that I've been learning in Starkville is how to have gospel conversations with people of other religions and how to bridge that, and then like be like, okay, your religion says this, but here's how this points to the gospel and points to Christ, and getting to have conversations in that. And then like the BSU over there even has international hour where it's just hanging out with international students and then building those relationships and then eventually like sharing the gospel with them. So that's been really neat to see.
What would you say to a young person who's struggling with, being in the world versus of the world? What would you say?
Just being able to find someone to pour into you so that then you can be able to go and pour into others, because if your cup's empty, you're not going to be able to pour into anyone else. And then just to be able to encourage you to make godly decisions so that other people can then look at you and see your life pointing towards Christ instead of pointing towards things of the world.
All right, thanks, Laurel.
For sure.
Tennessee Valley Church means church has left the building, so has membership. Here's what I mean. You might be feeling a need or maybe even a call from God to be part of our church family in a more tangible way. If you're not able to join us physically here at 600 Governors Drive, whether because of distance, mobility, schedule, or some other reason, you still can be a member of First Baptist Huntsville. Let me send you information on what that would mean, what you could expect from your church, and what your church would expect from you. Email me at travis@fbchsv.org. Let me know of your desire for membership, and I'll help you get started. Join hands with us as we attempt to join hands with God Himself in His mission to the world.